this play is for, as I say, all of us, but it's really for anyone who has felt like they don't belong, who has felt ostracized by their culture, or who have been told, indoctrinated by religion or by a society that somehow they were created wrong. This is a play for those people, to remind them that they were created perfectly. So that's who it was for, really. It's woken me up further and further and further into the fragility of life, the beautiful, terrible fragility and fleetingness of this existence. And as I said in the speech, the sanctity of the human spirit that lives in each person. And I think if we remember that, then we'll remember that we belong here on this earth. And if we remember that, then maybe we can have a joyful time and get together in community and figure this out, because we're lost right now culturally, I believe. And I think that's why the play speaks to people in this moment in time, even though it was written during the AIDS crisis and the Reagan era. It's absolutely about the epidemic that we're experiencing now in our culture, this epidemic of disconnection from each other, lack of connection to ourselves, and a lack of connection to genuine meaning and community through the amazing advances in these technologies. But it's an amazing thing what we get to do here with all of these incredible gifts of human invention. But there's a cost, and I think we are discovering the cost as we move on. And of course, the person in the White House right now is the antithesis of the value system of this play, and the antithesis of the value system of the theatre generally, of the arts generally. So it feels very important right now to be telling this story. The great thing about great pieces of art, whether it's a play or a novel or a documentary or a piece of music, if it's doing its job, it's changing you on a cellular level. It's making you more of who you are. So, and there's no exception with making art, with making plays, telling stories, being a part of a play like this. Probably more so because you're doing it every night, and you change on a cellular, symbiotic level through the ritual of doing this play. So all of the themes and all of the universal truths that this play holds has been swirling around in my psyche, in my body, in my soul for the past 2 years, pretty much. We've been doing this, and so it's changed me. I don't know how yet, but it has, and I hope it has for the better, because I think we're all a process. We're all a process, and we're all here to be a process and to get back to that original spark of who we are and who we came here to be. So.
Well, I'll have to wait and see what the postman brings, but then that's been my experience all my acting life. It's only what comes through the door. But it's a very powerful play, isn't it? And there is an energy in the play which fortunately we unpicked, and it does help us in that way. One of the things I find really quite touching is when people wait outside for our autographs, and they relate direct experiences of what they've seen within their own families. But then, of course, we're all facing that, aren't we? We're all living longer, so we're all going to have to face that. It's such a thrill because it's very unusual to work with other actresses. Usually there's only one woman's part in the piece, and if you've got it, there are no other actresses to act with. So to be on stage with actresses of the calibre of Laurie and Alison is such a treat. It's marvellous. When I left being a Member of Parliament, I said to the girls in my office, I'm going to have a life of utter irresponsibility, it'll be marvellous. And then I suddenly realised that in fact the responsibility is even greater, because who does get you out of bed in the morning if you're not working? Only you. I was totally unfamiliar with it. I'd never heard of it, which is a shameful thing to have to say, because it had been done twice in England, but I'd never heard of it. And when I first read it, because it's a play without any kind of physical action, really, I thought, it's essentially a radio play, but then I read it again and I realised just how complex and how interesting it is. Well, the fact that they are so welcoming and are so kind and they do chat to you. And the other thing that amazed me, still amazes me, is people wait outside for autographs and they've got copies, playbills of plays I did 3-4 decades ago. And that's pretty staggering, actually.
Well, if you're anything like me, I imagine you have a lot of questions. I have So many questions. What happened? A, how did this happen? And why have I not done a musical before? That's, musicals were never my forte, just never in my wheelhouse, really. I was that kid in grammar school whenever there was choral singing, I was told to just mouth the words. No, seriously, I'm not making that up. It's true. And I come from a large family, and many of them have just beautiful singing voices, very musical, and I just wasn't. I didn't get that. And so I had to get coerced into, into being courageous enough to try to attempt this and risk failing. And it's still very hard for me to believe that those other guys weren't chosen, because I saw two of the three and I was blown away by their performances. I saw My Fair Lady and Carousel. And I will never understand what just happened. I kind of built a career, shouldn't say this, but I like shtick. I just do. I rely on it, and I kind of thrive on it, and I just wasn't. Krummer really, emphasized to all of us really that this play was going to live in the silences, and all of the struggles are and all of the moments are internal. And so that was a little bit took me a while to let go of wanting to do stuff. It seems so unlikely for a Broadway musical. It seemed to fit perfectly off Broadway in a very small 200-seat house, very intimate. I guess there's an appetite for that alternative kind of thing right now, for something that isn't. I really believe that it's because there's so much going on in the world right now, and there's so much going on in our country. There's so much noise and nonsense, and this is. I feel it's a kind of a respite from all of that, and people need that, perhaps.
I think particularly with David Yazbek's music, because he is not firstly a music theater writer, but firstly like a rock and roll club band writer. I can understand where things are coming from, and maybe we have a connection in a way that I wouldn't have with maybe a different composer. But it has been really fun to pick his mind as to why this word here and why that note there. And that's been a really neat thing to talk with him about. What a good question. I think it just felt like a partnership in a way. There's such a bizarre, amazing, like meta thing that's happening to do the musical of the original movie, but then have the man from the original movie come and do the musical. It's thrilling to think about, and I'm so looking forward to getting to work with him. He's an incredible actor. I try to just focus on the work and telling the story and doing the show every night, and that's the number one priority. And if there's any sort of talk like about the performance, I tend to get too self-reflective, or to then start judging my own thing that's happening and stepping outside the performance instead of being in it, which is always a challenge no matter what, to stay in the moment. So I really tried to keep that over there. It's very nice to hear it now, though. So thank you.
Because I hadn't done it off-Broadway, I felt like I had to play a lot of catch-up, so there was a lot of preparation that went into doing the show. Fortunately, the music team was very helpful, and David Kromer and I had many, many discussions about his concepts for the show. And I felt like I had a great amount of support from the producers and the GMs on the show to just trust me with the things that I needed and the staff that I needed to make the show work. It is a very good feeling. I was nominated once before in 2012 for Follies, and to have it taken away was a little disappointing. I don't think I reacted quite as aggressively as some of my peers, but I am very happy that it's now back and adjudicated in, I think, a very fair way.
We were mostly driven by music. And Dean Chernow, our music supervisor, was really great at finding people who had some understanding of Arabic music, who had some improvisation skill, and who could conceivably look the part. He put them all in front of us, and in most cases the selection was very easy. So I have to credit Dean really there with finding people. When I listen to it, and I'm a music nerd, I can pick these things out. When I listen to it, I hear Canoon. It seems organic. It seems part of the ensemble. So that was the toughest thing, how to make that feel like an acoustic part of the ensemble and not be like the gross thing that you usually associate with electronic instruments.